Hello, Oracles. How is it going today? How was everyone's week? I know mine was quite rough, and I've been hearing from a lot of people that it's a rough week out there. For those of you who believe in the whole Mercury retrograde thing, I mean, I was never a believer until I started putting timing of it together, and man, it's been a lot. So let me know how you guys have been feeling this week, because gosh, it's been a rough week. Oh, let me see here. Looking at the charts, we finished up. So despite everything that was going on this week, we ended up closing relatively strong. I mean, it wasn't the greatest finish to the week overall, but pushing up nicely this Friday was pretty good. What's going on, Hanif? Yes, happy Friday. Very grateful it is Friday. How's it going, Lang? Oh man, over there in Australia, very nice. Oh, goody. Let me see. Let me take a look at the charts here. I've been where work has been insanely busy. So for those of you let me pop it up on the screen here for you. Give people some time to jump in. What's going on, Sith Lord? Yes, rough week is behind me. Absolutely. And it was funny because, with my race that was supposed to be tomorrow, which I ended up postponing, the weather here for the race was supposed to be almost 2 inches of rain and 50 degrees. And it's not like I haven't done it before. I mean, I've run in races that are worse than that. It's just like, I don't want to do that anymore. It just wasn't my thing. So it's like, that was just going to be the pinnacle on top of all of the stuff. Oh yes, the Falcon 9 launch. Yeah. Yep, 2 hours, and then we definitely won't be going for 2 hours here for sure. But yeah, Falcon 9, man, watching the launches is incredible. I want to get down there and watch one. Have any of you guys actually been to a launch live? That'd be awesome. Yeah, let me get this. I want to take a look at the charts really quick as we jump into this. I hate when it does that. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so RSI, and we were talking about it yesterday. How we've been kind of tracking here. Over where is it? Oversold or overbought to oversold to overbought to oversold, and we just tapped on that oversold. So is that where we bounce? We've got a FOMC meeting coming up next week, so maybe this is a little bit of a fake, and we're going to pull down further below this to fill that gap at 146. Man, I don't know. It was a nice little push up today, though, for sure, to end the week. So we also got some data that came in today. Oh, hold on a second. Sith Lord. Question, gang, if the Cybertruck coming out Q3, when do you think Tesla will have pricing laid out? That's a great question. We've got the annual shareholder meeting coming up in a few weeks. So with that, I think we're going to get that out of the way. So that's like the next, looking at like the big things that Tesla has going on. That's really the next big one. So if they don't lay it out between the annual shareholder meeting and Q2 earnings, it would have to come very shortly thereafter Q2 earnings. I would imagine it would have to come at that point. So I would imagine between now and August, because Q2 earnings should be July, late July. Last year was like the 25th or 26th. So it should be sometime around there. So I would imagine between now and then, if we don't get it, it would be early August is my guess. Let me see here. Yeah, there's a lot of people I've noticed over on Twitter. A lot of people I know that are going to the annual shareholder meeting. It's going to be awesome. I'm very excited to hear what they have to say. And this is now kind of back on track timing wise, because due to COVID they had delayed it, pushed it off. Last year was August, so now here we are coming up in May, and they're doing them in May, which is very nice. Let me see. Does Cybertruck have to be below 80K for tax credit? So expect the basic trim will be 70K-ish. Yes, it does. In order for that to qualify, it would have to be under it. And, you're going to run into this situation sort of like the Model 3 performance was, where the performance did not qualify, but the rest did. And actually, Model Y was the same way for a little while too. and they didn't qualify for the EV tax credit. So having one trim qualify and another not makes it a little tougher, but that would lead me to believe that Tesla coming out with it would probably start with that lower trim, or maybe not, or just because if production is going to be slow, maybe they start with the higher trim to bring in the higher dollars, bring the margins up higher. As they get production going, they can then pump out the ones that are going to be qualifying for the EV tax credit. Not sure how Tesla is going to play that out. Historically, they've gone with the higher end trims first. This time around, I thought maybe they would reverse it, but seeing as where the economy is going, do they go with a trim that they know people are going to buy? But a lot of the people who are going to be buying the higher end trim aren't going to be affected by the negative economy. So who knows? And today we got the GDP numbers that came in. So GDP grew 1.1%. So we've come down. So yeah, I'm going to be rough numbers here because I don't remember them specifically, but I think it was Q3 of 2022. We had like 3.2% growth. Q4 was like 2.1%. Now we're at 1.1%. So we've definitely been trending down. And this is what the Fed had wanted to do. The Fed had wanted to slow down the economy and get it to a point where, we're kind of where we're at now. But we have to remember that we still have a few interest rate hikes that really have not taken effect yet. So does this mean timing wise, as we were discussing before, looking at Q3 and Q4 of this year, potentially hitting an actual recession, looking at the way we've been tracking down, Q2 might be pretty darn close. And again, if we get close, maybe we're at like 0.2% growth of GDP in Q2, and then we go into the negatives in Q3 and Q4 and hit that recession. That could be the point where the Fed's like, "Ooh, now it's time to pivot." But then of course they're also going to balance it and say, well, we're here now. Do we need to? We've balanced. Timing wise, and just looking at all the data coming in is continuing to point to the fact that we're going to be hitting a recession later in this year. And that's just my take on it. But us going into that, does that mean Tesla's going to come out with the lower price trim of the Cybertruck first? But again, a lot of the people who aren't going to be affected by it are going to be the first ones. And if Tesla's only going to put out maybe 10 or 15,000 this year, they're going to have plenty of buyers for those high end trim ones. And then Nicholas, yeah, South Korea announcement this year. What do you think? And also, Tom Ju announced a second big gigafactory besides Mexico was in the making. It sounds like South Korea. It's the fact that Elon is the one who specifically asked to meet with the president of South Korea tells me that that's on the radar. To me, I thought it was going to be Indonesia, and then South Korea sounded pretty strong. So I think it's going to be between South Korea and Indonesia for the next gigafactory. So I do believe we're going to get that. I don't know when we'll get that announcement, but I would imagine we might actually get that you know, uh, between the annual shareholder meeting and Q2 earnings as well. So, they're trying to time out the news that they're putting out here. Yep, you don't worry about it, Marty. What time does it start? Because I think Raymond said in 2 hours. Just let me know for sure, because I'm definitely not going for 2 hours. I'm exhausted this week. Hey, Tim from Windsor. I'm one of the many undeclared. My next car will be Tesla people. I've been buying gas my entire life and sick to death of it. Yeah. Um, I'm the same way now. Windsor, UK, or Windsor, Connecticut? Because I'm in Connecticut as well. Um, and yeah, I'm definitely getting a Tesla. Mine's on delay. Actually, I wanted to keep you guys updated. So I did get my notification from Tesla saying that mine, it's not canceled. They've pushed it off. They have taken the one that was being held for me. They've given it to somebody else. And now I'm just in a holding pattern right now. They haven't officially canceled my order yet. So they have moved that. But just like last time, they allowed me to delay it once and then they canceled it. So we'll see how many times they allow me to delay it this time. I would imagine it'll only be once because prices are coming down. So they're going to force you to take that delivery because they don't want people canceling deliveries to then go ahead and push that down the road to get a lower price. They're going to make you take it. So I have no doubt that I will have mine force canceled soon enough. But again, I'm still not ready for it. My gut is telling me, hold on, don't get it yet. Multitude of reasons, but that's what. Yep, Ron, Bolt is dead by end of year. Model 3 will then be lowest price EV. It will. And of course, actually, I don't know, where's the Kia at? I don't know the pricing on that one. But yeah, and especially depending on what state you're in, because some states, have extra credits, so you might be down in the lower $30,000 range for it, which is kind of nuts to think about. So, so knowing that that's what's going on, it's possible. And of course, GM's touting their Ultium platform, but it's like, how quickly can they produce vehicles on this Ultium platform? Sure, they're going to get rid of the Bolt, but that's of course the next big question. Do you actually think FSD will ever happen? I do. I do think it will. I believe there is such a strong push for autonomy. It's going to happen. Um, Based upon the knowledge that we have, Tesla is light years ahead of everyone else. I don't know if anyone else is anywhere close where Tesla is at, and maybe they're just not talking about it. But it will be. There's way too many people focused on getting to that point. It will get solved. It will happen. Honey, that's awesome. That would be, you know what? I would not put it past Elon and Tesla to do that. Cybertruck at 69,420, and that would be the dual motor. Pi, yes, pi's a rough number. Elon had a good discussion about pi the other day. I think Cybertruck will keep the same price, but FSD will be mandatory. So 49K and 57K. I don't know if they're going to make it mandatory. Although doing it that way with that pricing and making it mandatory would be awesome. I just don't know if they're willing to do that because the actual cost of the vehicle, I would imagine, would be higher than 49,000. So that means that on the vehicle they would take the loss, but allow FSD to be what gives them the profits on it. I don't know if they want to go that route yet. I have a feeling they're going to do that in the future. I just don't know if they want to do that yet. Lang, safer than Indonesia for a gigafactory than for Tesla. Um, just out of curiosity, why? I'm not as familiar with that area. I know you're over on that side of the world, so my curiosity is just why, because I know Indonesia has a lot of the resources there. Maybe although they had the obviously lots of natural phenomenon that go on there with tsunamis and stuff. So, but I would imagine that's not going to be too bad. Maybe hurricanes or typhoons over there going through. Yeah, just curious why it would be safer. Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, my company has a branch up in East Hartford. They were in South Windsor. Very familiar with the area. That's awesome. I didn't realize you were that close. Maybe I did. You know what, Film Man? I do remember speaking with you a while back. I think I do remember. I'm maybe getting old and losing my brain a little bit, but I remember some things. South Korea mitigates China. Yep. China risk. Absolutely. So it makes a lot of sense. They could still make a Tesla semi-factory in Indonesia. I think they'll end up doing both. It's just a matter of which one comes first. And Indonesia might end up being like a battery hub. Um, and, Indonesia, relatively speaking, isn't that far from South Korea. So for one of them to supply the other wouldn't be terrible. So it could be an option down there. Maybe one of them does a megapack factory, even though Shanghai just got it. So there's a lot of options that are going on there. So I do think we're going to end up seeing both. It's just a matter of which one comes first, and absolutely, it's going to mitigate that China risk. I'm not as concerned about China as some people are, but quite honestly, I'm happy that they would have a second factory in a different location over there. I just don't like having China having all in one place. I would move to New Haven, Connecticut. They would change the name to New Haven, Connecticut, Van Halen. That'd be awesome. Yeah, New Haven used to be the place where a lot of concerts. New Haven Coliseum was a great place for a lot of concerts. Yeah, yeah, Nicholas. I have a feeling they're going to end up doing both. And again, for the same reason, just backing up China. Who knows what's going to happen in China? I think they're going to be a strong player, but to have just we saw how they were able to just shut down Tesla entirely there. So to mitigate that risk, and of course, Tesla having factories in many more countries now isn't making China as much of a risk, but at least on that side of the globe, they're the only one over there. So it definitely would help and have. Falcon Heavy stream starts at 7:15. Is that 7:15 Eastern? If that's the case, then we will definitely be off by 7:15 Eastern. We'll make it a shorter one, and we'll all go watch the Falcon Heavy stream. Um, unless I can figure out how to bring it up on here, which maybe I'll do. But either way, we will definitely get off so you guys can all go watch that. So South Korea may not be safer as North Korea is across its border. I mean, true, but there's so much still going on in South Korea. I don't think the whole North Korea threat's going to be as big of an issue. South Korea has great battery manufacturers like LG Chem and SK. If Elon can deal with CATL in China, South Korea makes perfect sense. That's true. They do have the battery factories there, which is big. And that's everything Elon has been pointing towards for logistical purposes for efficiency. Having it near batteries, having it near supplies, having it near the talent is a big one too. And I know South Korea's got some good talent down there too. So that'd be big. Yeah. Right now, Tesla has collected 140 million miles of data. My guess is when it reaches 10 billion miles of data, autonomy should be solved a certain degree. The car acts better or safer than human. And the way I look at it is like if, thinking about how Tesla does the safety scores, I'm wondering if they're doing their own little test on FSD safety scores. And they're like, all right, well, anybody with a safety score under 50, FSD is now better than all of those drivers. And they'll probably just kind of monitor that as it goes forward. And like all of a sudden, no, FSD is better than anybody with a safety score of 60. Now it's better than 70. And that's probably their way of really judging that, because if they can judge your driving itself by human driving and your safety score, they can absolutely do the same thing for FSD. So that's probably a big reason why they're tracking safety scores, and then they can finally say, hey, the safety score of FSD is an 85, which is now significantly better than the majority of drivers on the road. So that'll be big. Ooh, Nicholas, this is great. If you follow the growth rate and calculate the exact date when this will occur, 10 billion miles, it should be solved by Q3 of 2025, 2.5 years from now. Now, going by the growth rate, is that including exponential growth or is that linear growth? Because there's so many factors, and that's one of the things that a lot of people don't put together when it comes to the exponential growth. And I'm not saying you didn't, but a lot of people, especially in the Tesla Q side of things, when they look at exponential growth, they look at maybe if they end up looking at exponential growth, it's one piece of it. But when you look at the learning curve of FSD growing exponentially, plus the number of vehicles getting on the road for Tesla growing exponentially, plus you take into account the EV adoption rate growing exponentially and faster than what was anticipated, put those together, it might speed it up even faster than Q3 of 2025. But thank you for doing the math on that. That's awesome. Hey, Mark, what's going on? Ron, Tesla, almost 2 million cars produced this year after a long ramp. Yeah. I mean, think about 2 million. I mean, yeah, 2 million vehicles. Just think about when I started this channel. Man, that was October of 2021. I mean, that back then, like I remember, I think it was 500,000 we were hitting for the year, and we were like, oh, we were just short of 500,000. That wasn't that long ago, folks. Other OEMs say they produce about 2 million in 2 to 3 years, and nobody questions the ability to ramp so quick. Yeah, the speed Tesla is ramping is faster than anybody else has ever done. Even ICE vehicles, you go back to whenever, nobody's ramped this at this speed. They should build a factory in North Korea. Think about the labor savings. That's funny. Here it is. I was just thinking when collecting 10 billion miles of data, they should have come into every possible situation. Yeah, you would think. So by that point, the car can handle every daily situation. And the big piece at that point, too, is when are they going to have FSD in other countries? Because doing it in the US and North America is one thing, but we know full well that there's different roads, different signage that's out there, different landmarks, just all sorts of different stuff that the vehicles are going to run into in different, or hopefully not run into, but figure out along the way in all of these other countries. So the more countries they can end up having FSD in, the better. That's more miles on top of it, plus new data coming in for those areas to figure it all out. And yeah, of course, I kept exponential growth in mind. I kind of figured you did, but obviously with new vehicle growth rate, that could expand even faster. True point. Yeah, and that's the only thing, just the speed of it. So obviously, based upon the data we know, and you took all that into account, all the data that we currently know right now, the way I'm looking at it, the way you did is Q3 2025 is the worst case scenario. We'll call it is that's when we would hit that point. So, any realistically, we'll have it before then, if it speeds up faster. Ford 2 million in 2026. Yay. GM 1 million in 2025. Which one will make their goal? You know what? Honestly, they both might. I think Ford has a better chance strictly because they're doing it more in a Tesla aspect, which is less models. And less models means that they can really focus on, getting it right and speeding up that process and being more efficient. So I think Ford has a better shot at that because GM trying to pump out so many different models, it's going to make it so difficult for them to try and get it right and not have issues. And again, doing the same thing over and over and over again repeatedly. I do it with workouts, you do it with finances, you do it with everything in life. You do the same thing over and over again. The more you repeat with it, the faster you're going to learn it. Like the company I'm with right now, working in retail, and if any of you guys have been in retail, is you work in a higher volume store, you get a lot more customers, a lot more repetition, you tend to learn things a lot faster. You go into a slower store, there's not as many customers, you don't get that same repetition, so you don't learn as fast because you don't have as much repetition. So when it comes to these vehicles, when you have the same repetition over and over again, in my company and in the branch, I have to do like 30 different things versus in our main branch, like the people at certain areas do like five things. So they're doing those five things over and over and over and over again, learning a lot faster. Meanwhile, we have to do a lot of different things in different areas. And because we're so scattered all over the place, we don't learn things as fast and we end up making more mistakes. That I think is the way that GM is going. And that's why I think Ford is going to be able to hit their goal faster. Hmm. Oh, Lang, here we go. Indonesia skilled labor force not as high as South Korea. Muslims in politics not so stable in South Korea. Okay, valid points. And again, I'm not from that side of the world, so that's good to know that information over there. Yeah, the skilled labor force is important as well. Cheap labor is great, but if the cheap labor causes more harm than good, it's not good either. Why build new gigafactories when you can add more lines to existing ones like Berlin, Texas, Mexico? They should build megapack factories. They're going to do all three, actually. So they've obviously announced Lathrop and Shanghai for megapack factories. So they're going to get those up and running. They are going to be expanding lines in all of the current factories that they have, other than Fremont. Shanghai, I'm not sure if they're going to be able to put another line in. Chances are they're not. But even Berlin and Texas, absolutely. But you have to remember that when you're putting up these lines and having it all come out of one place, again, still not keeping all your eggs in one basket, but it's going to still take at least a year for them to build a factory. So thinking ahead down the road, building the factory, getting it ramped, most likely going to take at least 2 years to get to that point. So when they get to that point in 2 years, the extra lines are a lot faster to add. So by the time we see Mexico up and built and ramped, Berlin and Texas will most likely have almost all of their lines up and running. Texas may be different, but Berlin will most likely have all of their lines up and running. And at that point, you're going to be like, all right, where's the next factory? And you don't want to start the next factory when that last line is being done. You want to have that already in the works and in the motion to happen. So that's why they split it up differently like that. Maybe Indonesia is better to have battery factory, lithium, or nickel refinery. And then remember too, with the nickel, as CATL is coming out with their sodium ion battery, nickel is not going to be as important. So, I'm still going to be obviously highly important, but maybe not as much. So maybe that's why South Korea became higher on the radar. Who knows? Lots of answers that we'll have to wait on. Yeah, you're right, Marty. Dojo will accelerate FSD completion. So they may not need the 10 billion miles, maybe 5 billion. That's a great point too, because if they're doing a lot of simulation work and Dojo can really speed through all of that simulation way ahead and faster than actual real live miles, then you're right. That could speed it up way faster. He must be getting tired of all these stupid lawsuits. I don't know. I'm sure he's just drained by it, but at the same time, that's why he hired the litigation team to help him because he knew. I mean, he's not stupid, obviously. He knew that when he got into these disruptive areas, that he was going to be stirring a pot, that he was going to be, a target for a lot of people. So I am sure he anticipated a good chunk of this. Let's see. Yeah, Raymond, that's right. Corpus Christi breaks ground next month and in production in 9 months with the new refining process proven on the Tesla pilot line. Yeah, that's going to be huge because, you know, again, we've seen it time and time again. Tesla being, in control of their own destiny, Tesla being so vertically integrated, that is why they are able to move at the speed of Tesla. And people used to say moving at the speed of Apple. I've got my buddy who works at Apple, and he said, they move fast. But then when he looks over at Tesla, and Tesla moves 3 to 5 times faster than Apple, he's like, that's insane. So now moving at the speed of Tesla is faster than Apple by a long shot. And that's why Tesla is the growth company of the future. I'm not saying, Microsoft, Google, Nvidia, these companies are going to be going away, but Tesla is moving at paces that even they are struggling to keep up with. Lang, I am working in construction rental and sales. So like a Home Depot, but big boy Home Depot. So like we deal with whereas Home Depot, do a lot of like carpentry and like guys are building houses, things like that. Like we're dealing with guys who are building like the roads, all the road construction that's going on, massive buildings, schools, hospitals. We're building Amazon warehouses. If Tesla was going to be putting up a factory over here, we'd probably supply that too. So that's the kind of retail I'm in. Launch window opens at 7:29 for super heavy. All right, we are definitely going to be off by then. Don't you worry about that. So we can all go watch because I probably won't stay on much longer than an hour anyway. Her Tesla was hiring the Bud Light advertising team. I don't think so. Mark, I have not heard any good news from Berlin yet. Is there any? Yeah, Berlin's actually been doing great. Obviously the paint shop is great, but they opened up another line. They've been pumping out. I'm actually curious, and I'm Karav. I haven't seen on yet tonight. I don't know if he's going to be on. Curious as to where the ramp is at, because obviously last we knew they were at 5,000 per week, which is moving along very nicely. So good news over there. Tesla's being the number one vehicle being sold over in Europe. So obviously Berlin ramping the way it is helping that significantly. So yeah. And then not only that, but by Berlin being able to supply the vehicles over there as much as they are, it cuts down on the amount of cost that Tesla has from having to ship from China all the way over to Europe. So that is really cutting down on that cost. And then that's going to allow Tesla in China to ship more vehicles domestically and bring up domestic sales and push those over in China as well. So, seeing that balance is very nice coming along. Marty, Tesla Compact and FSD completion seem to be on a collision course. Absolutely, they are. If Tesla does solve it earlier, they could use a standard range Model 3 and dedicate that production of robotaxis. Yeah, and remember that Elon said that there's a misconception about robotaxi being its own specific vehicle. And not to say that it's not going to be, but every vehicle that is autonomous is going to be a robotaxi for Tesla. It has the potential to be a robotaxi. So that's one of the reasons why initially when they had announced it, I'm like, man, it's like I'll just buy a Tesla and like I'll be at work and just let my Tesla go and Uber for me all day long and just make me money while I'm at work and my car's just sitting idle. So that was one of my plans going forward, and we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I mean, just the timing of everything. Again, I keep coming back to 2025 on the timing of everything. That I think is going to be a monster year for Tesla and probably the entire economy. I think that's the year that we're going to start to see things we'll start to see the light. We're going to see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're going to start to breathe the fresh air and start to come out of it. I'm not saying we're going to boom by any means, but typically when you go through times like we're in right now, the strongest companies are the ones to come out the fastest. And Tesla will be one of those companies. And I think Nvidia, Google, Apple, Microsoft, I think all of those, the big tech companies that were very strong for the last decade, are also going to be strong coming out of this. And there may be a few new players as well that we don't even know about yet. Yep, excited about the mega packs, and this will blindside Wall Street. It will. It's gonna blindside them very much like we saw in um like 2019, 2020, when Wall Street was so far behind. They couldn't come up with numbers. They were, under guessing constantly. The analysis for it was like, oh my God, I can't believe Tesla's doing this. I can't believe Tesla's doing this quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter. Now they have finally caught up. Of course, now that we're in a rough economic time, they've caught up, and the analysis is relatively close. Now we've been seeing, estimates are coming in right in line with the numbers. But I think when we hit 2025 and 2026, between FSD and Megapacks and energy, we're going to run into another situation where we're probably going to have 1 to 2 years of estimates just being way off because they are underestimating Tesla. Let's see. Lang, why Apple share was on negative territory. Q1 Apple was out. You know what? I actually haven't been following Apple recently. I owned them. I sold them last year for a little bit of a profit just so I could put it into Tesla. So, um, don't know. I mean, Apple, it's going to flow. Apple really, because it's so heavily institutionally owned, that's just going to flow with the broader market. So, if they're going to come out with numbers, and I think Apple had, I don't know what product it was that the sales were down. So, it's going to reflect off of that, but it doesn't move a lot. Today in German newspapers, they just announced another Tesla competitor car from Turkey. Basically, it starts at 44,000 euros, has only 300 kilometers of range, and autonomy level 2. Yawn. Media sucks nowadays. Yeah, and again, having competition out there is not a problem. I think the competition is going to be good, but of course, Tesla cutting down on prices has kind of put a lot of people on a mindset that maybe it's slowing down the EV revolution. Not to say it's stopping it. It's just not going to speed up as fast because it's deterring a lot of competition from really pushing hard because they need to make profits also. And if they can't make profits and they're having to cut prices on their vehicles, they're going to make even less profits or go into a loss. And they don't want to do that. Cassidy price target in 5 years. That would be 2028. Let me see if I've got my numbers up. I don't have them up. I know Kathy Wood was around 2000. I believe I am right around the $1,200 mark for 2028. Without bringing it up, that's just based off of my memory. I believe it was it 1,200? No, because I was six or 700. So right around $1,000 for 2028. And now mine, for you guys who don't know, my price targets don't have FSD really in it much at all. And I do that intentionally because we don't know what the true numbers are going to be. Like, you can use Uber numbers, things like that. You can use different software numbers. You can use the numbers that we have right now based upon take rate. There's a lot of different ways to factor it out. I don't have the time to do all of that. So I'm going to go based on the numbers that I know that are here. I'll factor in some FSD into it, but not a lot. So my price targets are most likely very conservative. And I have bumped up my energy numbers significantly, but they could probably be bumped up even higher. Yeah, Nicholas, no one seems to understand Tesla's disruptive technologies in so many different aspects. Still think other car makers can hold levels. Yeah. Damn, I don't get why some people just keep on hating Tesla. For a big piece of it, there's two reasons that people are not going to like Tesla. One, people are not going to like Tesla because of the fact that they're the ones who are leading, and people don't like the leader. People are just like, I just don't like them because they're the best. That's why some people don't like them. The other reason is because they may be some people who are being disrupted. GMs, Fords, Legacy Auto, they're being disrupted. If you're having your life disrupted, you're most likely going to be sour about whatever is disrupting your life. And that's the other reason. So that's why we see a lot of the slander stuff that's out there. It's sad to say, but that's just the reality of how humans work. Marty, Once Tesla solves FSD, smart backhoes and forklifts will soon be soon to follow. Imagine a forklift that can unpack trucks without human help. Huh. Marty, being in the field that I'm in, I never even thought about that. Obviously, it's a totally different type of work, but like we do sell, like we have a whole entire instrument division. So we sell lasers and everything. And, there's grading machines that go out there. Like you can take a drone, get a huge plot of land, and just plot the whole thing. And this drone is going to go and it's going to plot out the whole entire layout that you need to do for excavation purposes and whatever needs to get done. So then you have machines that would end up having lasers on them that would go around and they automatically do what it needs to get done. So that is an extremely viable possibility for the future for construction. And talk about taking human risk out of the whole entire thing. That's huge. Then I think that is a possibility. I think there's a lot more that needs to go into it to get to that point for it, but they're already starting to work towards it now. Honey, if you want to have a couple of compact robo taxis that you own and you stay home while your cars earn your income for you, that's how you pimp your ride. Seriously, and that's exactly what I would do. I say while I'm at my job, but realistically, if I'm at the point where I don't need to have a job because my cars are doing it for me, then yeah, I would absolutely just live my life doing whatever I want to do and let my cars make me money. That's talk about passive income right there. That's huge. So I would totally do that. And that's one of the reasons why when I have my castle in Italy, that's what I'm going to have. I'm going to have robo taxis that'll just pick the guests up at the airport and drive them right to the castle without a driver. That's what my robo taxis are for. I wonder if the robots are doing anything in the factories yet. I don't think they're doing it yet, but we may hear about something doing it by the end of this year. And again, Brian and I talked about it. I think we might end up seeing them in Mexico. He doesn't think so, but I think there may be some small jobs that they do in Mexico. Even if it's like taking trash out, that might be it. But yeah, call that car the turkey. That's awesome. Oh man. Let me see. Yeah, some analysts think legacy should slow down their EV projects and drag out ICE cars. Sounds like suicide now. It does. And the problem is like they say to slow it down because obviously legacies, if legacy pushes, they're really going to go upside down if they push. So they really have a harder decision to make in the balance of, hey, we still need to have money coming in to cover all of our expenses. So we still have to continue to push our ICE products, but we also don't want to fall behind when it comes to EVs because if we fall behind too far, we'll never be able to catch up again. So that balance is very precarious for these legacy automotive makers. Not easy. And you have to remember too that even extending out their ICE lineup isn't terrible because they make the majority of their profits from the parts, service, and labor afterwards. So people are still going to need it. So they're still going to be able to make that money on the higher end profits further on down the road, the longer they sell these ICE vehicles. So from the analyst standpoint, that does make logical sense from a profitability standpoint. But how quickly are we going to transition to EVs? And are they going to be able to make their EVs profitable fast enough to make up for that change happening? Legacy seems destined to be killed by Tesla or acquired by China. China wouldn't do it. China is pushing faster than the US is when it comes to switching over to EVs. China wouldn't buy them. Absolutely not. No, China's like, no, we've moved on. We're good. Thanks. I do not know if you discussed this, but I think Model 3 may be a $25,000 car. It is possible. You're right. It's pretty darn close, Mark. And obviously, depending on what state you're in here in the US, it's close. And in China, it's real close. So you keep coming down on cost. And not only that, but think about the fact that interest rates here in the US are still as high as they are. So you bring down cost of materials, you bring down interest rates, that vehicle now becomes so much better. But don't forget, if interest rates come down, they can then go up on the price of the vehicle because coming down in interest rates makes it actually less expensive for people to buy. So at that point, we may see the turn. And don't forget, when we see that turn in pricing and Tesla starts going back up on prices, that right there is the signal for, All right, now we're going to start to see earnings going back up again. And analysts are like, all right, time to jack those prices up and we'll see the stock really take off. Yeah. Some don't accept climate change and Tesla becomes their whipping boy. You're right. I missed that one. That is a big one too. And again, I'm not a huge one to say, hey, we're in climate change. I recognize it, but I also recognize the fact that you look at if you anybody's ever read up like rules of actual rules of war, like not like a book, but like the rules of engagement, rules of war, and one of the things that's in there is that they are I think it was all by the Geneva Convention. They're not allowed to affect the weather during a battle, during war. So the fact that they put that in there obviously tells us that they have that technology, and we know that from cloud seeding. So we know that they can affect the weather. We know that we have that technology out there. So for those of you who may not trust the government 100%, can you honestly say that they're not messing with the weather? And if you start messing with the weather, you start messing with climate. So is it really ICE vehicles that and all of this that's causing the problems, or is it just the government meddling in places they shouldn't be that are causing it? Maybe it's a combination of both. I don't know. I don't have enough knowledge and true facts inside to find all of this information out, but I believe little pieces enough of all of it to say that moving over to EVs is probably the better move. Not only that, but it's quieter, it smells better, or it doesn't smell at all. Um, I just try to use my senses to determine, you know, the health of what's going on around me. Yep. Model Y now sells below the average US averaging car sales price for all cars. New EV startup can try to go for higher end, which Tesla is moving somewhat away from. Yeah, you're right, and that's the thing. That's where Tesla started. Tesla's literally following their game plan from day one. Come out with a high end vehicle to make the money from that, to then move into a lower end vehicle, to move into a next one, and then to move themselves down. So the next one in the line of everything is going to be this compact car. Meanwhile, anybody else starting up, Tesla, of course, started it so it sped up their transition. But even startups, just to make that initial money, they have to start with more expensive vehicles. Tough part for them is they're starting this at a point where people don't have the money. We're in a very difficult spot and interest rates are high. So if they can get through this, then they'll be okay. I mean, it's realistically no different than Tesla starting it with the Roadster back during the housing recession. So realistically, they're in the same place. But even if you speed that up by 50%, chances are these startups, if they make it through this, are still not going to be where Tesla is at until where Tesla's at today. They won't be there until 2028 or 2029. Uh, is this all you talk about as Tesla? No, I talk about other market stuff too, other financial things. Like I get CDs, dividends, lots of different ways to make money, real estate. I have a whole other channel on health and fitness. Um, I talk about a lot of different things. This just happens to be a Tesla video, and most of the people on this channel appreciate Tesla because we similarly seem to find it to be one of the best investment we can make in the future. But there's a lot of different things too. I'm not huge Tesla rah 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 that Tesla can do no wrong. Um, I think it's a great company. I think it's one of the best companies we can invest in. But there's a lot of other places that I think we can put our money in some other places and diversify as well. We could talk about the weather, I guess. Yeah, the weather here has been nice this week, but tomorrow's going to be pretty darn rough. The robots walk like Joe Biden. It's funny because it's true. Oh man. Let me see what else we got in here. Just a few more minutes and then we'll get off so we can go watch the Falcon Heavy. Um, yeah, U.S. government gave GM 43 billion. They're not going to do that again. They'll figure out a way to get them something. I think they did it with the EV tax credit, but yeah, they're not getting a bailout. I'd rather buy GM since they beat on earning and I invest in all stocks, not just one certain one. Margins could be hurting them, uh, by CNBC saying. Yeah, my whole thing is like my mentality is longer term, and I don't see GM outperforming Tesla in the next 5 to 10 years. GM's they don't have a growth curve. They're at the top of their growth curve, and even with EVs coming out, because of the fact that they have to cannibalize their ICE lineup in order to get themselves with EVs, their earnings are going to be pretty much stale and flat. And Tesla, on the other hand, is going to be continuing to grow. So even in the near term, with their earnings maybe being flat because of the economy and what's going on, when we come out of this, Tesla has a better opportunity of really taking off with their earnings than GM does. And that's my play on that. In the near term, you can play it certainly by earnings quarter by quarter because, GM may have a better quarter than Tesla in the stock price itself, just because of the way it gets manipulated. Totally possible. Randall, do you think we'll actually hit 2000 per share in 2027? If Tesla solves FSD and autonomy gets regulated in the US by 2025, yes. If not, then it'll be delayed. I think a lot of that hinges on FSD being solved. No more stock buyback. Tesla's putting all of its current cash into capex for the next 3 years. That's not true. I know that they bumped that up, but they had talked about that same $7 to $9 billion last year, so they'll still have plenty to do a buyback. It's just a matter of when they do it. That buyback might actually get announced maybe Q4 of this year or Q1 of next year, is my guess. All right, just a couple of more comments, and then we're going to jump off so we can go watch the Falcon Heavy. Sorry if I'm skipping through. I normally don't do this, but we got more important things with Falcon Heavy coming out. Randall, do you think Cybertruck production will start this year? Absolutely. It's going to start in Q3. Yep. Powell's going to raise rates next week and make nasty comments. Then market dips may dip again. That's my thoughts. He's going to come out and say it. We're going to be getting hit with the realization that GDP is coming down, potential recession coming up. We're going to start recession talks. So I think we start to see that drop next week again. So what we saw today to finish the week off with a little push up may continue into Monday, and then we may see some uncertainty Tuesday and Wednesday. Obviously, I could be totally wrong, but that's just my guess as of right now. What's going on, Ian? Good evening from UK. Been a great couple of days longing for longing Tesla. May I wish you and your viewers a beautiful weekend? Absolutely. Hope you have a great weekend too. Big match for my team tomorrow, possibly 3 matches for Wembley. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I'm getting my kids Sunday, so we'll take a look at the scores and everything. Coming down to the end. All right, that is it at the end here. I'm going to get going so you guys can go watch Falcon Heavy for those who want to watch it. I'm going to jump it on mine as well. Thank you guys for being on tonight. You guys are always the best. Way to finish off a very rough week for me. Thank you guys so much. Have yourselves an awesome weekend, and we will see you later.